Buenas and half a day to our listeners on Guam and in the CNMI. It's now time for Total Health right here on Joy FM Radio, where your questions get answered by health professionals. If you have any health-related questions, we would love to hear from you. Call your questions and comments in at 472-1111 or text or WhatsApp 686-9999. If you're in the CNMI, please call 323-1113. Welcome everybody to Total Health.
Half a day, Guam. Here we are with more of a Total Health today. Today I was thinking about a topic that will be a continuation of last time historical aspect of the Chamorro people. And why are we doing that? Why do we look forward to the future going backwards? Because many times we take things for granted, including our health. Health is a factor that has always been looked down upon. When you have health, you don't appreciate it. Once you lose health, nothing else matters more. And we'll have a talk on occupational health and how we can stay healthy while doing our job. But the historical overview today would really make us appreciate where we live, the sacrifices that have been made by the Chamorro people through the centuries, so today we can enjoy health. And I hope after this talk we will not ever take health for granted. Health is something we need to really work very hard on. The overview comes from the Book of History of Health on Guam, written by Dr. Haddock. He has been epidemiologist that came and really studied territorial epidemiology in the Guam and Marianas. And he discovered many interesting things and components that I would like to share with you today. As we spoke last time about medical anthropology and about Chamorro health, we realized that the Chamorro people never just treated the disease as simply as biology, as many times we do today. Just because we have so many problems that for every single problem we have to visit a doctor for. And that's why that particular doctor will treat just that particular thing. But in the past, actually, the Chamorro health was connecting disease with colonization, with war, with migration, with environment, culture, diet, sanitation, modernization, and changing systems of healing. According to the Pacific Public Health Surveillance Network review, it describes that it covers all health disciplines within Guam's social, cultural, economic context, including diseases, as young as 1686. In a nutshell, we can say that many diseases in the past that the Chamorro population had, and some of them were endemic, were treated successfully. And many diseases came later on as a result of colonization that we have to face it today. So the traditional Chamorro health, we spoke about it last time, and we cannot really remove the Chamorro society from their land because the Chamorro health is embedded in the family, in the community. And when I say Chamorro, please do understand also Micronesia. Community, food, land, ocean, spirituality, healing. Illness was not what we call today physical versus spiritual. It was all together. And the sooner we go back to that approach, I think we're going to reap benefits from it. As we spoke last time, the Chamorro people used to use plants and massage and different manipulations, which were very culturally appropriate until we all shifted to the Western medicine. An excellent example of that is the Hansen disease. How many of us remember the leprosy? I hope none. But leprosy is still prevalent from time to time. I remember when I was coming to Guam, they told me that there are 3 cases a year in Guam. I don't know. I'm sure that the numbers are different since then. But on my first week, I diagnosed leprosy at SDA clinic. Yes, so when the Spanish authorities established a leprosy hospital in Asan in 1892, many Chamorro did not like that. They said, I am not going to go and be treated. I don't have to be isolated. I cannot separate myself from my family, from my, ancestors. I'm going to be here and I'm going to continue living this way. I know that the government needed to put a lot of efforts to confine the Chamorro people and so they can be isolated. We know about the story in Molokai in Hawaii that island particularly was dedicated for leprosy. And many people from the Pacific they traveled to Molokai being isolated, and they had a very successful raid. The local priests, one of them, the most famous, Father Damien, he built a church for the population there, and he noticed that from time to time they had to come out and spit out. He said, "Brothers, why are you spitting out? Just stay inside for the church." And they said, "No, it just, the bacteria, it really irritates us, so we need to go out and spit." And he built a spitter right there in the church. Some people do not leave the church, and they are right there listening about God's word. Well, in Guam, it was not that easy for people to come, even stay in those institutions. They had to actually be punished. They had to stay for 1 to 3 days with a bow and a chain publicly because they refused to go to a leprobrium. And then it was like kind of a public humiliation to know that person did not want to comply to the regulations. Very interesting. For the Chamorro society, healing historically involved belonging, family, culture, not simply treatment of pathology. And what do we have after that? We have the European contact. What's interesting that they also had a condition called Yau's disease. We don't have it anymore. It is easily treated with azithromycin, but a lot of the population died as a result of that disease. The Europeans did not bring it here. It was here already. And we find that condition also in other Austronesian islands, also Malaysia. Many are speculating that the Chamorro people do come from the Malaysian islands because when Magellan came in the 1500s, some of the translators that were translating for Malaysia, they were able to communicate with the Cebu in the Philippines and also with the Chamorro. The language somehow had been similar. And that disease apparently has been spreading since then. Very easily nowadays we can treat it, and luckily Guam overturned most of the leprosy, most of the Yao disease. Another thing that was found in the Mariana Island is that most of the population was having problems with their back problems, spondylosis even. And why is that? It was because they were carrying the big latte stones. Did you know that? Yes, and those were for the most commoner people, that they had to build the houses for the rich people, for the higher hierarchy society. But that's something that we need to appreciate today, that, the culture came with some price that was paid from the ancestors before.
Have you seen that television show where a millionaire spends a week volunteering with nonprofit groups? At the end, they surprise them with a generous contribution. Although we haven't had any of them stop by, we know that many of our listeners believe in what we do, and they regularly surprise us with a financial gift that helps us reach a little further, bless a little longer, and continue sharing a life-changing message. We're Joy FM. And the truth is, whether you're a millionaire or not, we could use your support.
Joy FM, family-friendly radio. JoyFMradio.net.
Si Joe Ismasi, and thanks for listening to Total Health on Joy FM. We want to hear from you. Call in with your health-related questions at 472-1111. In Guam or in the CNMI, the number to call is 323-1113. Text or WhatsApp us at 686-9999. And now, back to the show.
Yes, we're continuing with our overview on Chamorro history, and I hope we can find it fascinating and realize how much effort it has been put by the government, by the local Chamorro people, so today we can enjoy a glimpse of health on the islands. The European contact, unfortunately, brought an infectious disease catastrophe for the islands. It wasn't enough for the islands that every year a typhoon will come and swamp the islands. It wasn't enough that the Guam really had to go through very significant earthquakes. Also, few tsunamis, but also we have a volcano. The Natahan volcano 2005 eruptions actually caused quite a lot of disturbance in Guam. In other words, it's not for everybody to live in Guam. It is for strong people to remain and live in the Pacific Islands. But when the Europeans came, they brought a lot of problems. I'm European, and I have to acknowledge that much disruption actually has happened in the Pacific Islands as a result of our invasion. So the beginning with the Spanish contact and colonization, previously isolated island population were exposed to infectious diseases. In fact, we know that the population before the Spanish was close to 50,000 Chamorro people that were inhabiting many of the Chamorro Islands, many of the Mariana Islands, not only those that we know that are inhabited today. They were like spread everywhere, like 50,000. And at some point, there are historians that were saying we are not sure if a single male remained from that, like diminished almost to 1,000 as a result of that. Yes. And we know that the health of the population of Guam today cannot be separated from the political history of the island. And as we know, Guam subsequently passed through Spanish, through Americans, through Japanese, and back to Americans. And each of those, political powers have had an influence on their health. We can relate that Catholicism came, and Catholicism and traditional healing were coexisting at the same time until the Europeans came. And today we have more pluralistic health system because we don't only have Austronesian population, we also have Asian population, we have Caucasian population, and Guam is like very anthropologically diverse. Later on, we also find the American naval medicine coming to Guam and transforming the public health. This is a significant step that has taken place, and that's from 1898, when the health increasingly became an organized function of the government. So the naval administration placed considerable emphasis on things we now recognize as public health. And they put their finger in almost everything for good. Sanitation, water supplies, communicable disease control, quarantine, maternal and child health, mental health, vaccination, hygiene, disease reported, and hospitals. And the historical record even contains Navy efforts to improve Guam's sanitation and water supply during this period. So a lot of efforts have been done. Also, the military had done a lot of work to eradicate diseases like dengue. There was an outbreak, especially even during the Second World War, of dengue, where many people had died. But the Navy had successfully eradicated Aedes aegypti mosquito that spreads the dengue disease, which is great. So the Naval Administration had done a lot of good things for Guam, and we hope somehow we'll find also a success over the brown tree snake one day. The Western health policies were sometimes paternalistic and colonial. We know that authorities could define what constituted appropriate hygiene, childbirth, food treatment, disease management, and unfortunately, they did not actually take into account the weight of the Chamorro knowledge at that time. Nowadays, we are realizing that that was a big mistake, and we're trying to go back to the holistic concept, the way the Chamorro and Micronesians are seeing health. You're not separating disease from everything from the community. Disease in pure biological form, but as a whole, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. So Guam's public health history contains both medical progress and cultural disruption, unfortunately, with the arrival of the Europeans especially. The World War II also was a health catastrophe. We know the Japanese occupation from 1941 to 1944 profoundly affected the health. I was reading some records that somehow the Chamorro people knew that Japan might invade them. And there were some efforts for the people to start gardening, saying, hey, people, you need to prepare yourself. We never know when we're going to get into the hands of the Japanese Empire. We better start gardening. But not many people attempted to start gardening. There are occasionally just few efforts of that. So we know that the World War II brought a lot of war meant trauma, food shortages, malnutrition, displacement, injuries, infectious diseases. Even we have heard some records of collecting flies. The Japanese had to collect flies in order to spread diseases like biological war and breakdown of normal community life. Yes, the enormous movements of soldiers, ships, equipment, supplies through the Pacific altered Guam's ecology and introduced disease vectors. Yes, and that's the dengue outbreak in 1944, and also in 1947 the Japanese encephalitis appeared, which is also spread through mosquitoes. Aren't we glad that we don't have to face those challenges today? And I hope we don't take things for granted, because we are enjoying Guam today. It's relatively free from infectious diseases. We have leptospirosis in the soil. We have only a few more, but we are relatively free from the infectious vectors today. And then after the war, Guam underwent a second epidemiological transition, what we call the modern Guam. Sanitation, antibiotics, vaccination, modern medical services improved, and many of those diseases disappeared. But what did we get in return? We got obesity, we got hypertension, we got diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, kidney diseases, and cancer. The Chamorro population was extremely healthy. All the records that we have mentions them that they are strong, well-built, muscular, without tattoos, which is different than the rest of the Oceania. Very strong, very hard-working people. But the duration of their life at that time was, guess how much? Mara, guess, what was the lifespan of the Chamorro people? Any number you say, you won't be wrong.
100?
No, I mean, I wish, but with all those diseases around and all those calamities, unfortunately, the lifespan of the Chamorro people was only 44 years. Yeah, very low, very low. And they were like really healthy as a race. So in order for us to claim that the Chamorro population lives between 65 and 70 years, that's a great advancement, like almost double the life, almost, which is great. And today our aim is, of course, for our patients to live more than 100 years of age. We're going to start changing the way we see life. Many of the Chamorro people I meet in the clinic, in their 20s and 30s, they're like, oh, I'm aging. No, we are not aging. We are growing, we're maturing. We're not making mistakes that we have done in our young years. And we can still live a very healthy life in Guam. But we have to find a way of really treating those diseases. So, as I said, in other words, Guam moved from society primarily threatened by infectious diseases and environmental hazards towards one increasingly burdened by non-communicable diseases. The transition actually was connected with enormous social changes, like traditional food was replaced with an imported food, with processed food. Nowadays, we get processed food from everywhere, from Asia, from, Hawaii, from Australia, from Europe, from the States. Physical labor got replaced with what? More sedentary living, right? The sitting disease. Local subsistence, cash economy, extended traditional communities with urbanization. Local grown foods got replaced with highly processed American style foods. And relative geographic isolation, now we have an intense international movement. So we have to consider those factors when we are building a healthier Guam. That is why Guam is such an interesting, actually natural laboratory for medical anthropology. And of course, migration changed Guam's health profile again. Post-war Guam became increasingly multicultural. I need to mention, but our population today is not primarily Chamorro, is not primarily military. We have our Chamorro people. We have Filipino. Filipino play a huge role in the, anthropological substance. Chuukese, Palauan, Yapese, Marshallese, Korean, Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese. What else we would say? And other communities brought different genetic background, different diets, different beliefs, different languages, different pattern of diseases. Consequently, the health of Guam cannot really be understood anymore as homogeneous population. We have a very heterogeneous population. We have problems that are happening among the Chuukese population, among the Yapese population, among the betel nut chewers. Yes, so what do we have to take into account? The modern health disparities, that they reflect the interaction of culture plus socioeconomic status plus migration plus colonial history plus environment plus genetics plus access to healthcare. And we are very, very privileged in Guam. Every time I see patients from other places, they might not have a dialysis center. They might not have many facilities that we do very generously enjoy in Guam. Guam is becoming unusually important in many, many aspects. We are also increasing in our studies and research. We are very grateful to the University of Guam doing a lot of projects and trying to keep us safe in the middle of the ocean. But also I need to mention a very important historical aspect of the disease that took place once upon a time. Have you ever heard about the disease called lithocobotic? No? When I was coming to Guam, I read about it and I was so fascinated. And I remember on my interview, I asked the doctor that interviewed me, have you ever seen lithocobotic? And they're like, no, it's not very prevalent anymore. And it is not prevalent today because we have eradicated most of the problem. And the problem was coming, like I will summarize it, from eating fanihi, eating the fruit bats. And the fruit bats, they would eat the fruit Frederico nuts that it has cyanide, like cyanoid components in them. They will eat those, and then humans will eat the fruit bats. And as a result of that, we have this Parkinsonian dementia complex that has been found nowhere else but in Guam. Even though we have in Palau, the Frederico nuts are there, but the fruit bats that were eating it were predominantly in Guam.
All right, as you can hear, our music, we are going into our second break, and we'll be right back after this.
Your support is making a difference.
Why is it important to support Christian radio? It's real simple, because the world needs a balance. The world needs a counterbalance to the bad news we're hearing, to the obvious things that are wrong in the world. Somebody needs to start declaring the obvious things that are right in the world. And certainly the gospel of Jesus Christ, the good news, is the hope of the nations.
When you give to Joy FM, more lives are reached, touched, blessed, and changed.
Welcome back. You're listening to Total Health on Joy FM. Call in with your health-related questions to 472-1111 in Guam. If you live in the CNMI, we want to hear from you too. Call 323-1113 or text or WhatsApp us at 686-9999. And now, here's more Total Health.
I don't know about you, Maverick, but I think it's very interesting to go back in history and appreciate what we have today, right?
I think you're right.
Yeah, we don't suffer anymore from that lithic-bodic disease, but in 1904, there were 3 death certificates that came on Guam, and nobody could really define what is that paralysis that was taking place. And from 1945 to 1956, there were like deaths from that lithic-bodic disease, like 200 per 100,000 per year. And it was 100 times more prevalent anywhere else. Neurologist Oliver Sacks, he came to do a further evaluation of that disease, and he actually wrote the book, The Island of the Colorblind. Did you know that there is an island that
Really?
everybody is colorblind, and that's not Guam, that it's Ponape, that Pinjalap.
Really?
So he discovered that very unusual genetic feature
Yep.
in Pinjalap, and then the second part of the book he wrote about lithic-bodic, and it is because of, as I said, the Frederico nut and the concentrating of beta-methylamino L-alanine, which is a neurotoxin that people were consuming the fanihi from. And I'm sure that that was much more prevalent previously. We just discovered it in our literature in the 1904. But Asian Chamorro have been eating fanihi all their life. And they have been also eating the Frederico nuts because those were the only nuts that would remain after a typhoon. They were like unbreakable.
Elena, before you proceed, would you... You know, there are a lot of people, probably young ones, and some around our age who are not familiar with fanihi.
Yeah.
What is that?
Oh, fanihi is I hope I pronounce it correctly. It's the fruit bat that used to live, used to live in our place. I mean, we can still occasionally see them at Anderson occasionally. But that was the food of the local Chamorros. We have so many legends that were saying how some of those great warriors right here in Guam, they would just cook fanihi for for lunch.
Delicacies.
The delicacies, correct. But the Frederico nut, you can make very nice tortilla out of them. But of course, they have this cyanoid component into it, so you need to know how to cook it. And it's not anymore advisable. I heard in some places it's really not even allowed for you to harvest the nuts and make a tortilla. I didn't know that. I did collect them. I did recognize them. They are, when you break them, they smell very nice, like fruity, like a peach. This is what the fruit bats used to eat. They're fruit bats, so they eat fruit like nuts. And then I had to cook it for 14 days. So you boil it. It is in the inside part. It's like you can pulverize it, make it like a dough, and then mix it with water. And I had to cook that for 14 days. Every day I would just throw the water away with the cyanide. You need to know how to do that. Many of the nuts, even Native Americans, you can still cook them if you know how to use them. And of course, we don't recommend in a high quantity. And I made a tortilla, and that was the most delicious tortilla I've ever eaten in my life. Definitely, I was glad to try it once, and I shared it with others. Not everybody wanted to try it, of course. I don't blame people, but it was indeed very, very delicious. So I can see why the Asian Chamorros would pick those nuts and eat them, especially after the typhoon. So that condition, the lithic-bodic, it's like lithico from paralitico and bodic from body. It's a cortical degeneration that resembles the amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, but it's literally like a Parkinsonian dementia. I have met only one patient that had those components, but very old in age, but obviously I did not diagnose with it. I didn't have the tools to do so. But you have that muscle atrophy, maxillofacial paralysis, inability to speak. They will start. And basically none really survived. It's such a degenerative condition that really took you to death, literally. And the diaphragm, the respiratory accessory muscles, they get paralyzed, needing people to be on ventilation. Saliva must be suctioned all the time from their mouths. I will just read a excerpt from the book The Island of the Colorblind by Oliver Sacks. So you can see the things that our ancestor had to face. The doctor visited a patient who had just suddenly come down with a virulent form. His symptoms had begun 18 months before, starting with a strange immobility and a loss of initiative and spontaneity. He found he had to make a huge effort to walk, to stand, and to make the least movement. His body was disobedient. The immobility attacked with frightening speed. And within a year, he was unable to stand alone and could not control his posture. There is so much that we need to learn over time, and we don't know it all, definitely. The Bible never recommended eating bats, mice, but that knowledge wasn't so well spread through all the Mariana Islands. Many still, in the many places in Asia, still consume this type of a meat. And we know how many diseases as a result of that we have. Actually, I could find some.
Go ahead, go for it.
Yeah. I just want to find some information that I have collected over time about different diseases and how they are coming from the consumption of meat, of unclean meat.
Right.
Okay. In a little bit, I'll find it. Yes, so today we don't have to see that anymore. The Cichus macronesica is not anymore consumed. We don't make the flower called fadang anymore because of the toxicity we know about. And people are not able to find the flying fox, much more to cook them.
Flying fox.
The flying fox.
That's interesting.
Oh, flying fox, yeah. Fruit bats.
Oh, the same animal.
Same animal.
Okay.
Yeah, fruit bats or flying fox. Yes.
Okay.
I would think so, unless somebody corrects me. We're going to have some biologists coming and talking about environmental health in Guam. That actually will be a good question for them.
Nice.
Yes. So, the larger lesson that we can take so far from those books I'm mentioning, it is to summarize Guam's medical history in a pre-contact Guam, when land and ocean and family and traditional healing were the most important. Then European contact, introduced infectious diseases and demographic disruption. Spanish colonial period, traditional healing and Catholic influence, emerging Western medicine. The American naval period of sanitation, vaccination, hospitals, and organized public health. World War II, occupation and trauma and malnutrition and displacement and new disease ecology. Post-war modernization. We have the antibiotics, the vaccines, the improved sanitation, and the expanding healthcare. Moving into nutrition, lifestyle transition. What do we have now? Processed foods, reduced physical activity, tobacco, betel nut, alcohol exposure, methamphetamine. Modern Guam, diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, kidney disease, cancer, mental, social health challenges. I don't know. As I'm reading those things, what do you think? Are we getting healthier or we're not getting healthier?
We're not.
Yeah, in a way, many of those problems are eradicated today, but we are getting more and more problems, and we are having more and more expenditure of, financial resources on Guam, that it continues skyrocketing. I found the work from the University of Minnesota Medical School, and together with UOG, that they started discussing different trends in local Medicaid spending in the U.S. Pacific Islands. And it was noted that 2014, 2015, when GRMC started, the private hospital, before that, the Medicaid wasn't as much spent. And then all of a sudden, we have this big expenditure, up to $80,000 spent on Medicaid service between 2014 and 2023. Of course, it is also as a result of the fact that we have an access to health care, but also the population. Why are we not getting healthier? right?
question, yeah.
Right. This is definitely something we need to discuss. And the University of Guam, together with the demographic report of the Guam Department of Health and Human Services, are doing a lot of investigation how we can reduce not only the financial expenditure, but how we can reduce the disease burden. Significant increase in overall Medicaid spending on Guam. Significant increase in inpatient hospital and emergency room. We do have most of the money go for the emergency room for inpatient, while just a small amount of money are allocated to primary care. Why do we have to all the time have, the urgent care to be the first source of controlling disease?
Right.
And many people don't have a primary care provider. There is no blame here, but this is something we can learn as a community and do better. We are not in an island that we don't have access to healthcare. We do have an access to healthcare, and we do have an access to insurance, to health insurance. I'm not saying life is easier. Life has not ever been easy. And if you live in Guam, you need to know that life is not easy. You cannot come to an island and expect that your life is going to be beautiful, tropical, beautiful life. It is difficult to survive on an island. And it's the time for us to really take care of our health.
Right.
If we don't take care of our health, we could not expect that our health is just gonna flourish and be good on its own.
Right.
There is no significant increase in community health center spending. There is and there is a significant decrease in dental care spending. Why? Because people don't go to a dentist. They usually come when things are getting worse. Then maybe they can go to the dentist, or they will come to urgent care saying, "We don't have the dental insurance. We need antibiotic until we figure out what to do with our teeth." But it is time and for us to really shift to primary care. Find a primary doctor. Of course, somebody will say it's so difficult to have a primary doctor. Doctors are coming and doctors are going. At the moment you establish a relationship with someone, it becomes difficult. Well, it goes both ways. Doctors in Guam are, we're burned out.
Right.
And we have a beautiful population that we are happy for them to follow traditional way of living, but also we see quite a lot of stubbornness in in changing certain things, changing diet, changing sedentary lifestyle. There is no blame here. We are all in the same boat. We are all trying to survive in the middle of the Pacific, but we can benefit from each other. Definitely it's worth making an effort to find a primary care doctor that you will be followed. You will do your physical exam. You'll do your screening. We'll be talking about cancer and diabetes and all that. We need to learn how those things can be controlled, because we saw with the endemic of COVID, if your health is not in order, viruses are not going to spare you.
Right.
The more comorbidities you have, the harder it is definitely to manage your health.
Right.
So it is definitely a priority for us, and we do have an access to it. Limited, but there is still an access to it.
Right.
So the future, what is the future? The future healthcare for Guam. It is combining modern medicine with culturally grounded Chamorro and Micronesian concepts of wholeness. Isn't that beautiful?
Amen.
We are realizing that we have really robbed the islands from pushing them into westernized medicine. But we, as Westerners, we can actually embrace the Chamorro Micronesian concept of wholeness and take care of the full person, the whole person, body, mind, and soul.
All right, you have now heard the music. That's the sign that we're going into our final break for Total Health. Do not go away. We've got one more segment for Total Health Live.
Welcome to First Future Bank. How can we help you?
I'd like to finance my future.
I think we can handle that. Are you looking for an annuity, IRA, stocks, bonds?
They all sound great. I'm not sure what would be best.
That's why we're here. What are your plans for the future?
Well, one day my life will be over.
We do offer estate planning.
That's nice, but I wanted to finance what comes next.
Excuse me?
You know, heaven.
Oh,
I don't need anything fancy, but I'd like to pay for my spot. How do I prepare care for that?
I think, well,
Heaven is a gift. Jesus made the offer. You can't buy it, earn it, or trade for it. You just have to believe, accept the gift, and look forward to it.
I do have some color patterns I'd love to see used in my future home.
I think there's been some misunderstanding.
Heaven is real, but good behavior won't get you there. When planning your future, consult Jesus. He has answers. Joy FM, family-friendly radio.
And we're back with more Total Health. Give us a call with your medical questions. Number to call in Guam is 472-1111. If you're in the CNMI, the number to call is 323-1113. Or you can text or WhatsApp us at 686-9999. Now back to the program.
You know, Elena, before you dive in, I have one question.
Sure.
You know, why is it that we have all these technologies, all, let me say, the wisdom in the whole world, yet it seems like we're still falling behind in terms of medical? You know, my mother, she's stage 3 cancer, and she's in that later stage of stage 3 cancer, and they've told her, hey, you know, there is no more, like, it's useless to do, what do we call that, radiation? There's no point of doing that, and basically the doctor said, you know, enjoy your life as much as you can. So, you know, why is it that we have all these technologies, you know, improved technologies, yet it feels like we're not there, you know, we're still behind? Just a random question.
You know, Maverick, I'm very happy that you are asking this question, and because I went through the history of Guam. Next week, I'm going to dedicate more on what we can do about cancer, what can we do about the diabetes that we have in Guam, and, you know, how we can move forward. But it is definitely not an easy way out. So to answer your question is that we're living in a great controversy. We're living in a moment that there is evil, there is goodness. You know, God is fighting for our health, for our life. It has not been easy, and we also have a saying into it. I'm not saying it's anybody's fault, but it is time for us to really shift to more lifestyle medicine, that we may take our health into consideration, that we would invest more in our health, then invest more in our jobs, you know, because we are giving our health for our jobs, for our money, and then when we lose our health, all the money are not enough for us, and, you know, to bring that back. And of course, stress plays a significant component to it. I don't know a single person that has not been stressed. I heard that Elon Musk, he said he's not stressed anymore because he secured, you know, his future. He has a lot of
billions.
Billions of dollars, but he also lost a lot lately. So yeah, I don't know if there is a person that has not been affected by the stress. And of course, we do have environmental components as well. We do have genetic component as well among the Micronesian population. You see that the cancers have shifted through the years. First, it was the most lung cancer, cervical cancer, breast cancer. Now, among women, we have the most breast cancer. And so those cancers are very prevalent in Guam, and we need to be talking about them. Dementia is also very prevalent. Diabetes, kidney conditions. And we don't have to remain slaves of that. Many times I say to my patients, if I just change the diet in Guam, I'm gonna be a Nobel Prize winner. Because if we you know, go back to the roots and go back to the healthy lifestyle, we can avoid many of those diseases. And I had a patient that he said, and doc, and if you do that, you will be assassinated because we love our food. So you know, we need to face it. We do have, you know, for many things we have stopped the cultural development development, like we have disrupted the culture, and now people are very strongly feeling that we need to go back to the culture. But when we go back to the culture, why don't we take the good stuff and leave the bad stuff?
Oh, right.
Right. And why don't we select the good foods that they used to be eaten here, like breadfruit? Who eats breadfruit nowadays? And breadfruit has so much omega-3 that's very cardioprotective. You know, it can decrease the level of inflammation, which can subsequently decrease the level of cancers on the island. But we don't go back to the good stuff. We go back to what, you know, we think was the good thing from the past, not realizing that it does have an effect on us.
Are you familiar with turkey tail?
Turkey tail,
Yeah.
the plant.
No, it's a meat. It's the tail part of the turkey.
Oh, this is what you're talking about. Okay.
Yes. So here's a story, short one. I remember how many years ago in Chuk, they would collect breadfruit, and they, prepare the breadfruit. They go and they sell it, and the money that they get from the breadfruit, they buy turkey tail from the store, and they of course they consume it, but they get what? High cholesterol.
Yeah, turkey tail has a lot of meat there, a lot of fat.
A lot of fat, yes.
Yes. Well, yeah. Why do humans go to bad when we could go to good?
Right.
To what really nourishes us. And I tell my patients, look, if you are a car, you need fuel. You don't need diesel unless your car runs by diesel.
Right.
And what do? We go for diesel. And then we are wondering why we have all the lights on, why things are not running smoothly, why do we have heart issues, why do we have to be hospitalized? If we need to fuel our bodies with what fuels us.
The right fuel.
With the right fuel.
Right.
And if we stay in one place, if you park your car in the garage for 2 weeks, I mean, you're like concerned you might not restart it. Like, let's take a little bit longer. But like, if you're all the time sedentary, what do we expect?
Right.
And also, I tell my patients, if we are eating junk food, your body turns into junk. It doesn't turn into something good.
Right.
And of course, everybody, like many people would prefer junk food because of mental health, because it gives you some, peace, some joy, some happiness when you're especially not feeling well. But with this fluctuation in our moods, up and down, we're developing, you need 6 years to eat junk food to develop depression.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And depression and anxiety. So it is all interconnected.
Wow.
And there's so many things that are all around us that can make us sick. So it is a very continuous war, very continuous choice of everyone to really fight for their health. There is not an easy answer to that. It does have an environmental component to it, genetical, but also it has also our choice.
Right.
And if we don't know how to select, we can make, not very wise decisions.
Right.
But I believe there is hope, and God can restore us in such an amazing way. Let me finish with some good connotation. For example, cancer. Every day we have precancerous cells, and some of our genes get damaged. But when we go to bed, this is what I like to say to myself, but that gene works all the time. There is a gene that's called P53 that goes through the cells and just checks the cell and makes sure that all the genes are okay. And when the P53 goes around and sees some of the genes being malfunctioning, he kills them. And it's great. When he kills them, that cell does not turn into a cancer and you continue your life. But what happens if we're overly exposed to what can cause us cancer? Then some of those genes, they say, hey, instead of P53 killing us, why don't we kill P53? And so P53 gets eradicated, and then the cell turns into a cancer cell. Like, if I can say it in simple language, this is what I'm going to say. And the moment you kind of lose this gene, then so many things start happening out of place. And cancer cells becomes immortal cell because it finds, how to turn on the telomerase, which is an enzyme, and it's like just continually growing. It cannot be stopped unless it consumes the body. and just keeps on growing and growing and growing. And for many years, we didn't think that we have any way of restoring that gene P53. And we would say once you have a cancer, you have it there. But nowadays, with the advancement of medicine, with a better lifestyle, we certainly can enjoy much better health for a longer time. Definitely. But there is a breakthrough that came several years ago, that there are certain foods that can restore P53. Isn't that lovely?
Amen.
That is so wonderful.
That's wonderful.
And I will read to you some of them.
Okay.
The one that's the most powerful one, I think, up to now in research, from what we have, is the broccoli sprouts. Eat your vegetables. Broccoli sprouts, they contain like 500 times more sulforaphane, which is a component that have been shown to restore. Yes, and we can find broccoli sprouts nowadays even in Payless.
Right.
You can find them, you can buy them, especially if you are suffering, any of your relatives, you cannot go wrong by eating, broccoli sprouts. Let me tell you some of the other foods that we figure out that they can restore the P53. Those are the Brussels sprouts, those sprouts that not everybody likes them.
Right.
Kale, cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, kohlrabi, and we have even watermelon kohlrabi now in Payless store. Cress salad. We're not talking about some bacteria that you can find on them, but like well-washed, well-cultivated. Right. They have very good antioxidant, antimicrobial, anti-cancers, anti-inflammatory, anti-aging, neuroprotective, anti-diabetic components. Arugula, bok choy, collard greens, horseradish that we have here. We're importing it from Asia. Mustard greens, radishes, rutabaga, Swiss chard, turnip. What else? We have the wasabi. Amazing stuff. We do have everything here to, reactivate those P53. Yeah. That's my favorite gene. I usually say to myself, Elena, go to bed so P53 can work in ideal conditions.
Amen.
But we will talk more about cancer next time as I will continue this historical overview. Now, in other words, as I'm finishing, I will just mention that Guam had to face a lot of epidemics, like starting from 1686 with the Yaos epidemic, then 1688 influenza, chickenpox 1779, smallpox 1799, 1849 influenza again, severe cough, smallpox, measles 1861, whooping cough 1882, 1899 acute anterior poliomyelitis. We even had typhoid, filariasis, mumps, measles, dysentery, poliomyelitis, scabies, 1958, rubella, and just it continues and continues. Leptospirosis. Like, we are actually very, very pleased that God has sustained somehow our life through all those years, and we can have a good and solid population in Guam. And I hope with that overview, even next time, we will learn how to be happier, healthier, and holier. Indeed.